In this week's episode of NDVision. So we watched the new
Knuckle
TV.
puck.
Yeah,
That's the knuckle puck. That's
Knuckle puck.
and
How many times when you were a kid? Because we had the Mighty Ducks and Hook.
right.
So we used to be like, I have the pan sword now. Either that or it was knuckle puck.
Yeah.
Because like Pete said, the G's when you're going down, it's the lens goes.
And then I remember the alarms on the aircraft going off on plane because we're getting close, and I'm like, can we get even closer? And he's like.
Hello and welcome to this episode of NDVision. I am joined by longtime friend and colleague Peter Mangels. Hi, Pete.
Hey, Nick.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. I like to start off every podcast. First of all, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
I like to start off every podcast with kind of just everybody telling me about themselves. So we did have your sister on,
Right.
Heidi,
Yep.
who was, I think, like episode 6 or something like that. So if you want to watch that, please go back. Pete was mentioned a few times. But Pete, tell me about yourself.
Well, I work at the radio station here in Wellsville, WJQZ, WLSV Radio. I've been working there since about 2005 when I graduated high school. Eventually, I got into photography, and I've been doing photography work since early 2012, 2013.
So it's been a decade.
It's been almost 10 years now. And then I also work over at the library at the Nancy Hall Auditorium. I've worked there for quite a while. Since that reopened in 2008, I worked there as a technician running lights and sound for different concerts, showing movies. And I also coach baseball. I've coached modified JV and also assistant coach at the varsity level as well.
Okay, that's quite a lot of stuff. And we found out from Heidi that you and Heidi were both homeschooled.
Right.
And you had your graduation out in Michigan.
Yes.
What got you into photography? Obviously, I want to talk about hockey with you too.
Right.
But
right.
Let's do photography first.
Photography, a couple of years ago when I started building my website, trying to think of why I got into photography and how it came about, I sort of remembered when I got my first DSLR back in like 2011, 2012. It was when Owen was born, and thinking about how I wanted to be able to take pictures as he grew and got older and, kind of capture those family moments. And then I remembered it went back even farther than that. My interest in photography and taking photos went all the way back. I think it was 1991, actually, when Heidi was born, the year that she was born.
Oh, wow.
I got a camera for Christmas that year. And the reason I remember that is because it was a camera that had a picture of Hulk Hogan in the corner. Every time you took a picture, every time you took a frame, Hulk Hogan would be in the corner of that frame hulking out. It was
And
funny.
this is film.
This was on film. Yeah, this was on film years ago, and it wasn't, your regular 35 millimeter. I don't even know what kind of film it's considered now. I remember it had the 2 spools, one on each side.
Yep.
It was like you put it in like a long rectangle type box, which was your camera. You had to crank it. And so I remember taking pictures of Heidi because she was born on Christmas Eve on December 24th. When she came home on Christmas Day, I remember taking pictures of her as a newborn baby, and in the corner there's Hulk Hogan. I still have a picture somewhere. And
Do you still have him?
I still have him somewhere.
I
Let's see if
should have
can
had
dig
to bring him in.
Yeah.
So that was your first foray.
That was
into
my first
photography.
experience into photography, and I love taking the pictures. And then, I think as I, kept getting older, having that Hulk Hogan in the corner kept bothering me. So I think eventually my dad and I opened up the camera somehow and took that apart and took the little thing in there that put Hulk Hogan
it was
on
like
the
a stamp, right?
It was like a stamp,
Yeah.
and we took that off, and so I was able to use it as a regular camera. But again, it was just point and shoot back in the day with that film. And then my dad passed on, it was another camera. I think it was a Minolta disc camera, which you would use like the round disc. You'd put them in there and have the film on that. And then I think you had like 8 or I can't remember how many shots on there, but that was fun. And I did that for a while. And then once we weren't able to get the discs for that camera anymore, I stopped taking pictures until I kind of got back into it, when I got my DSLR.
So what was in between your early onset of photography where you took a break?
I think pretty much just growing up just being a kid. And, we were involved with, when we moved here to Wellsville in 1998, we were involved with the children's theater program. Heidi was involved with that. I used to help out, doing stage stuff because I wasn't involved in the acting. I didn't want to have any part of that. So I helped out more so behind the scenes, part of the stage crew. and more of the tech aspect. And so we got involved with that. I also helped out with when it was the Wellsville Parks and Recreation Department, their tennis program. I used to volunteer and be one of the assistant coaches for their program when they used to do the tennis here. And we used to go swimming quite a bit too as a family over at the pool.
The elementary school pool?
Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
Well, even actually before the elementary school pool, we went to the middle school pool here in Wellsville before they tore that down.
There was a middle school pool?
Where the tennis courts are now in Wellsville, next to the high school, there used to be the middle school there, and they used to have a swimming pool there, and that's the pool that we usually went to. We really didn't even eventually go to the elementary school pool a whole lot.
Was it outdoors?
No, it was inside.
Was it?
Inside, and right next to it there's a gym
remember
also.
this.
Yeah. Yep. It was before they built the one at the elementary school.
And I've lived here as long as you've lived here, and I can't remember that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny because you're both homeschooled and you both have your own businesses.
Right.
And you both started working at the radio station. Tell me about the radio station, because you're a little bit older than Heidi. When did your dad buy that, and how were you? Obviously, you were alive then.
Right. So in 1998, my dad and my uncle bought the radio station here in Wells. So I remember they were looking at a couple of different locations, and they eventually settled on purchasing WJQZ and WLSE here in Wellsville. And so I remember moving here in 1998, and it was a bit of a different, area from. It was similar to Ellenville, where I came from.
And that's in the Catskills.
And that's in Ulster County, in the Hudson Valley.
Yep.
And so it's this population-wise, it's about the same, but different. Kind of different style. You're moving from downstate New York to Western New York and the Southern Tier, and I remember being able to go to like Kingston or Middletown on the weekends, 40-minute drive, which is essentially the same distance from Olean to here. And, you could go to those different places. There are a lot of different...
Middletown is a pretty bumping area.
Yes, it's a big area. Kingston also is a big area as well. And so now Olean is, pretty much the biggest area near us. And so it's a more rural area, the location that we're at now.
We're actually, it's funny, living in Andover, we're closer to Rochester or Elmira than we are to Olean. So we can actually make it to Rochester, Henrietta, like the shopping area. We can actually make it there faster than we can make it to Olean.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
That's cool.
From Andover.
That's crazy.
But Wellsville, Olean's closer.
Right.
So just that 10 miles there makes a big difference.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
Now, you are an avid hockey player.
Yes.
When did your love for hockey start? Because we're gonna go back into photography.
I think I've always enjoyed hockey. I remember even before we moved to Wells. So again, one Christmas I got a Fisher Price net, and it was like a hockey set, and it came with a soccer ball. I don't ever really remember using the soccer ball. I always remembered the hockey stuff and using it as a hockey net.
And were they the plastic colorful ones?
Red and blue, and the net was a yellow net.
Yep.
And it's probably about knee high now on me, but it was the funnest thing. And I think what really got me into it though was watching the Mighty Ducks movies.
Yes.
That is what got me into hockey. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have, the passion for it that I do now. And it's funny because, I still have a soft spot for the Anaheim Ducks hockey team.
Yep.
To this day, even though, my team is the Sabres, of course, but the Ducks, I always root for them anytime they're in the playoffs. And as long as they're not playing the Sabres, that's my team.
So my nephew is actually, I think I was telling you that his team is 11th in the country right now, and he's going to be coming back and playing with the Sabres because there's a youth tournament. But his team is actually called the Ducks.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and they love the Mighty Ducks as well. We just started. My kids are just getting into hockey, so we've been going to some AmVets games up in Rochester.
Right. Yep.
Because they have the kids' days, the 3-2-1 days. So it's a $3 beer, a $2 hot dog, and $1 popcorn. So that's
Can't
why
go wrong
we go.
with that.
It's so cheap, and the tickets are like $15.
Right.
They're in a certain section, but so they started getting into hockey, and we watched, of course, all three Mighty Ducks movies. Second one is the best one.
That is the one that got me into hockey. I think that was the very first Mighty Ducks movie that I watched was
Yeah.
the second one. And I the only reason I think that was because that's what the library in Ellenville had at the time to rent. And we watched it, and I loved it, fell in love with it then. And
D2,
D2,
the Mighty
yep,
Ducks.
Yep. First one was good. First one was good. Third one was okay also, but I think it was the second one that really,
The first one was more of a heartfelt film, like a family film with hockey. The second one was just straight hockey.
and if you watch the first one, there's a lot of adult humor in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't realize it as a kid, but when I'm watching it with my kids now, and it's like, wow.
But it's not, I mean, it's 90s
No,
adult
yeah, oh,
humor,
absolutely.
so it's not like...
Right.
But yeah, so the second Mighty Ducks I loved as well. Kenan Thompson, GOAT. But so we watched the
Knuckle
new TV.
puck.
Yeah,
That's the knuckle puck. That's
Knuckle puck.
and
How many times when you were a kid, because we had the Mighty Ducks and Hook.
right.
So we used to be like, I have the pan sword now. Either that or it was knuckle puck.
Oh, yeah.
Smash it.
Yep. Well, me and my buddies, we'd play street hockey out, in the streets up here in Wellsville. My buddy Paris Elliott, and then back from high school at the time, Andrew Morse was a good friend of ours. And three of us would go skating around outside in the streets, and we'd be playing hockey, and I'd have a hockey net, and I don't know how many of those plastic nets that we ended up destroying. We ended up getting a metal net, and that was the best thing, but it was so heavy because you have to carry it around. I remember we went down Early Street with that net one time, and we were carrying the net like on our rollerblades down to play on one of the side streets to just have an area where there weren't as many cars going through, so we could play. But the stuff that you do as a kid just to go and play some hockey or have some fun like that, you don't do that now.
The stuff that I did as a kid, I questioned how I'm still alive.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And it wasn't parenting. It was just
What you used to do.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, we watched the new series, and the new series is actually quite good.
It is.
They only did
It
2
is.
seasons,
Right.
but it was quite good.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yes, I did. I loved it. Actually, I liked it. I liked that they had Emilio Estevez back again as Coach Bombay. I like, I like that and the nostalgia behind it and the idea behind
That's what it was.
Yeah.
That's I've said this multiple times in this podcast, but the biggest seller of anything right now is nostalgia.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you look at everything that from when we were kids.
We have money now.
Is coming back.
So we're buying the stuff
Right.
that we wanted
Well, you look
when
at
we were a kid.
some of the toys from the 80s or 90s, and they're making them come back now. Do you remember Teddy Ruxpin, like from the 80s? Like, and now he's back out in the stores, and it's like...
It's because that we have money now.
Right.
Like we're in that age group where we're kind of, for the most part, settled, and we have stable jobs, and we're buying everything that.
And now we want our kids to experience what we experienced.
Exactly.
And so
exactly. Pogs is a big thing. I want Pogs.
See, I never really got into that, but Liam has told me about that.
I bought Gray, my son. I bought him a Crisscross Crash because I used to just sit downstairs in my sister's dad's basement and just play that.
Was that?
Switch out cars.
Oh, okay.
It was like it looked like a 4-leaf clover, and they would just go.
I do remember that now. Yep,
and then
I
they
do remember
crash every once in a while.
Yep.
It's like yeah.
Yep, I remember that now. Yep.
Cool tools.
Yes. Yep.
If you have a favorite toy, please comment what your favorite toy was back in the 80s or 90s.
Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah, you're very into Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah.
So where do you play hockey at now?
Up in Olean. Play hockey up in Olean. Occasionally, over the summertime when Olean doesn't have their ice in, we'll go play up in Jamestown. A group of us, guys who normally play in Olean, we'll go up to Jamestown and play up in Jamestown at the rink up there.
So why Jamestown rather than someplace like Rochester? Because I feel like Rochester.
We have played in Rochester before. We've gone to Rochester. I've played at the Harbor Center before up in Buffalo. That's fun. The experience of being on the ice up there where, the Sabres do practice and play up there. And actually we got done playing one of our pickup games up at the Harbor Center one time, and some of the Sabres players were there and they came out, they were getting ready to go on the ice as we were finishing up our session. So it's kind of neat. And
how many teeth were missing in that team?
I didn't get close enough to see.
So you're playing up in Olean right now, and you're still playing games. You have a team,
right?
And is it just community?
It's so up in Olean they have the Olean Men's Hockey League, and it's not just men; women play also. They have an A, B, and a C league. Your A league is the top league, and they play on Tuesday nights. Our league is the B team, which is in the B league, and then there's the C team, which plays Wednesday nights, and they're a beginner league. No, it's a lot of fun. And if you've never played hockey before, you want to get out on the ice, they have skate and shoots. That's actually how my buddy and I started. We went to skate and shoots first. So I think it was my 27th birthday. We had taken our kids up to Olean to go ice skating. We always talked about, playing ice hockey. We'd play roller hockey, in high school, middle school, all the time. and we always talked about wanting to play ice hockey. So we took our kids. This is a Saturday, and we took the kids ice skating. And afterwards, we saw that on the way out the door, they had a skate and shoot that night. And we asked, well, what do you need for skate and shoot? And they said, well, you need skates, you need a stick, gloves, and a helmet. That's really all you need. And shin pads.
Yeah.
So my buddy and I, we went over to sports soccer. Well, I mean, it's implied. But no, we went over to sports soccer, and I think we grabbed whatever we could find that they had over at sports soccer, like helmets, whatever the minimum requirements were. So we show up, and we're getting dressed. All these guys are putting on their full gear, hockey gear, and Paris and I are looking at each other. We're like, we're not prepared for this.
We're poor, aren't we? Like
we hopped out on the ice, and we had to look like the original Mighty Ducks.
Yeah,
stuff that we were wearing out there with hoodies and but it brought back memories because when we were kids playing roller hockey out in the street, I'd play goalie. I'd stuff like a pillow up underneath my hoodie, wear like two hoodies, and I remember getting one of those Jason Halloween masks to wear, just a thin sheet of plastic to cover my face so when I got hit in the face, But the things, it brought back memories, and it was fun. I mean, the very next day we went on online and ordered the rest of the gear that we needed, but it was fun. And I play goalie now, and that's what I primarily enjoy playing the most. But once in a while I'll skate out, and it's a lot of fun.
Okay, so you're not the speed demon then. Paris is the speed demon.
Paris is a better skater than I am.
Is he?
But he has a good shot, but I feel like if we were in a competition, I could probably beat him at shooting if I didn't have to skate.
Would you use a knuckle puck?
Oh, absolutely.
So you're into hockey pretty heavily, and then when do you think? What made you get back into photography? You said you started back into it kind of 2012.
Yeah, I think part of it was when I was working over at the library auditorium with Eileen Texa. She was the director of the auditorium at the time over there. Her husband, Joe, he would come and he would take photographs at the auditorium and with the performers that were there, whether it would be from a concert or from some of the kids' programs they would have. And he would show me, the pictures that he got, and actually his pictures are still to this day hanging up in the halls back there.
Oh, wow!
And they were really, really good. And so I think that kind of reignited the passion. It kind of made me remember about taking pictures and wanting to get into photography and learn more about it, because I think it was there. I just kind of forgot about it, put it aside, and never really pursued it any further after I was a kid, because you're growing up and you have other things that you're doing, and so it just kind of took a back seat until I remembered the passion that I did have and the interest that I had in it.
Yeah. So did you start back out with your Hulk Hogan film camera?
I tried to find it just for nostalgia.
Oh, do you not have it anymore?
I don't know where it is. I think I have it at my parents' house somewhere. It's got to be somewhere. It might be buried in a tote somewhere, but I've got to see if I can find it.
I still have the original, and I think it's in my basement, but I still have the original digital camera that I started with my buddies making the Jackass videos on.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Because the school was getting rid of it, and I was like, sir, can I have this? And I mean, it was like, it had like a 512 megabyte card, and the video quite literally was about this big. It was 4:3, and it was super tiny. I'm making like the size of the old like pictures that you'd find in a class picture in the yearbook. That's how big the video was, but it worked for us.
Right, yeah.
And then I got a video camera, which I still have. I don't throw anything away.
No, I've got to have it somewhere. I know I do. I'm sure I've got it, somewhere at my parents' house. And I tried finding. I still have that disc camera, the camera with the that you put the discs in for the disc film. I still have that. No, I've tried to find it. I haven't found it yet. I'm hoping I have it there somewhere.
It'll be there. Either that or your dad's like, oh, I threw that away.
You have to go on eBay and find a new one to replace.
I've thought about doing that stuff that I used to have when I was a kid, like going on eBay just to get it back.
Right.
There's one guitar that I completely regret trading in at Music Alley, and I went back like a week later to see if it was there, because it was almost instant regret, and someone had bought it. And I always check.
Yep.
Check back to see if I can find it in, because I will buy that guitar back. It'll happen. So what camera did you start out with then when you got back into it?
I started with a Nikon D7000.
Pete. No. So you're actually one of the few Nikon shooters in the area. But you did switch to mirrorless now.
Yes, but I have a Nikon mirrorless. And actually, I had back in, I think it was 2014, I got on board early with mirrorless with the Fuji X100S.
Oh, Fuji.
That was back in, when mirrorless was kind of a new revolutionary thing. Not a whole lot of people knew about it, but I felt it was one of those things where that's where the industry was headed. And so I just kind of wanted to get a head start and, looking into the mirrorless, what mirrorless could offer. And I think it's really neat because you go from film where you had to develop your pictures, you wouldn't know what you're getting unless you're shooting a Polaroid camera, to now you have these DSLRs. You can look on the back of the screen and you can see if your picture looks the way you need it to or you want it to. And now you can see it in the viewfinder as you're taking your picture with a mirrorless. And it's a game-changing tool to instantly know, okay, yeah, my exposure is right on. So when you're shooting something where you're not going to have a chance to do it again, you know that you're going to get that shot and it's going to be properly exposed.
So coming outside from, I'm obviously the video world, and they're two very separate worlds. There's things that do kind of commingle, but for the most part, video and photography are very different.
Right.
But the video cameras, you could automatically see exactly what you were filming, and then from the stock style video cameras, I went right into mirrorless Sonys.
Right.
So I've always been able to see what I'm shooting. And I remember when we were doing a project, which we'll talk about a little later, but I looked through your camera because you were still using DSLR. I'm like, I can't see anything.
Right, yeah.
What's happening?
Yep.
And you're like, you got to take a picture. I'm like, why can't I see it?
Right. Yeah. And that's the neat part about, the mirrorless now is that you have that ability to look through. And again, depending on when you got into it, there was a little bit of issues where your focus wasn't exactly keeping up with the refresh rate of your screen that was in. So it wasn't quite the same as if you're looking through like regular DSLR viewfinder, but now it's gotten so good where I know a lot of folks are using today's technology with mirrorless. They can't even tell the difference of whether they're looking through a viewfinder or if they were just looking through a DSLR regular viewfinder.
Yeah, and it's because I switched right over to Sony. Sony was one of the pioneers of mirrorless.
And actually, Sony was a camera that I was looking at when I was looking at getting my first camera. But it wasn't the Sony A-series cameras that they have now. It was whatever it was before they...
I think it was the DX.
Yes,
series.
the DX, the Sony DX series. Yeah, and I was looking at those because I was trying to figure out what camera I was going to buy for my first camera, and I was actually looking at those. I was close to getting one of those.
You would have been so much cooler if you got... I'm just kidding.
Those cameras are obsolete now.
The things that you do with those Nikons are amazing. You're one in a million.
It as people have said before, it's not the tools that makes a good craftsman. A good craftsman doesn't blame his tools. And I think that, just based on that idea, I would be able to shoot Canon, Sony. I have no problems. It's just the menus and trying to figure out what buttons are what, because everything else is the same. The exposure triangle stays the same. You could shoot film and get a similar, depending, obviously you have different film stocks that you could shoot, but you could get a similar, it's, what you see in your eye. And that's why everyone, has their own style, is because it doesn't matter what camera they're shooting, but it's the style that they, see and then they're able to come up with.
You know what my favorite camera ever is?
What's that?
And I've had multiple versions of this camera, but my favorite camera ever is my cell phone.
And that's the one that people say is the best camera because it's the one you have with you all the time.
It is. It truly is. I teach a lot of after-school classes with kids and then summer programs, and I tell them the exact same thing, basically that you would just said. It's like, it's not the gear,
right?
Although I'm very partial to Sony. It's not the gear, though. It's how you use it, and what you're framing is the most important thing in video or photo.
And you can take any camera, whether it's your phone, whether it's a point-and-shoot camera, like one of those, Walgreens cameras. You go down to Walgreens, get one of those film cameras, and you just turn into them. When you use it up to have them develop it for you, it's your composition and being able to learn composition. And really, that's the first thing that I think people, should learn, is being able to figure out how to compose an image and
your rule of thirds.
Yep.
Learn it.
Yes.
So you're shooting with, you got your Nikon, and I'm just busting your balls, Pete. You're a fantastic photographer with Nikon. I just have a sour spot for Nikon. But Nikon is fantastic if you're just a still photographer. The reason I have a problem with Nikon is because their video still even
Right.
is lacking.
Well, and that's when I was first, looking at getting a camera. And the reason why I went with Nikon was because of Eileen's husband, Joe.
Yep.
And he shot Nikon camera. He shot a Nikon D90. And, when I was talking to him, I loved the pictures he was getting. And I was asking him different questions. And I talked to him about the Sony camera. And the one thing I think that made me go with Nikon was just the history behind them. They were around longer. And I think Canon was, obviously Canon's been around forever too. And so I think I would have had no problems getting a Canon camera. I just went with Nikon because that's what he shot.
Yeah.
I loved his pictures, and I thought I would get the same pictures because I'm shooting Nikon. That's what he's shooting.
Yeah. And now that you have mirrorless, I mean, I could pick up your mirrorless Nikon and know how to use it because it's, again,
Right.
like you said, it's all the same.
Right.
Now, if it was DSLR, that's where I'm like,
But it's the same DSLR. DSLR is the same as your mirrorless because your
I know,
settings
but
are
I
all the
can't
same. It's
see
just because you
it.
can't see it in live time, right?
So one of the things that I learned about you and how we first kind of started working together is when I was working with like Alfred University is you do a lot of sports and action photography. So I had Jordan Costello on, and her niche is kind of the real life in life portraits. Amber Niedermeyer does newborns incredibly well. Zaravaya does like outdoors and dark scenics. She has a very dark style.
Very unique style.
Yeah,
Yes.
but your niche is action photography, and that doesn't mean just sports. Like you can anything that's moving quick. I think that's where you really shine.
Right. And I think that's what I look towards, trying to being able to accomplish is because we do have a lot of really good photographers in those different areas that you talked about, and being able to stand out in a way where it's different than what everyone else is offering is important. And so I think being able to look towards sports, because I love sports, of course, and so it was just a really easy transition for me to get into, and so it's something where when I first started taking pictures of sports, I'm like, I really love this. I would rather do this than shoot a wedding.
Yeah.
Because at the time I was shooting weddings, and I was an assistant shooter to shooting weddings, and I saw, even though I wasn't the primary photographer, I saw all the work that goes into that, and then shooting of course my own weddings too. But I enjoy the sports because I kind of know how to anticipate action. Like I know the sport, a lot of the sports that I know, what's going on, where the action is going to be, or different expressions to look for on the sidelines and the stands, that kind of thing. And so it was just one of those, it was just like a perfect match for me because I do enjoy sports and love playing sports. And so why not, take pictures of other people playing sports.
So how did you get linked up with Alfred U?
Funny story, actually. So the way that worked, I believe it was Super Bowl 2015 helped me get the job over at Alfred University. Oddly enough,
So you had been doing photography really in depth for about 3 years.
Yes. And so I was primarily doing, portraits and as a assistant wedding photographer and doing some of my weddings on my own. So anyway, John Anderson reached out to me during the Super Bowl, and this was actually a week before Super Bowl. And he reached out to me because I was at intramurals for Wellsville Varsity Baseball in February. And he's like, hey, Paul Janis, who's the sports editor at the time for the Wellsville Daily Reporter, is going down to cover the Super Bowl. We need someone to be able to go out and get some pictures from some of the high school sporting events going around so we can run them in the newspaper. And so I said, yeah, I'd love to do that. Like, absolutely, that would be great. And so I went and shot, I remember shooting a Scioto girls basketball varsity game, Wellsville boys and girls varsity basketball game, and I think Wellsville boys volleyball, and so those pictures ran in the Wellsville Daily Reporter that week. And Mark Whitehouse from Alfred University, who was the sports information director at the time over at Alfred University, he saw those pictures and he called me up that summer, and just out of the blue, like I wasn't expecting anything at all, just random. One day he calls me up in the afternoon. He's like, hey, I'm Mark Whitehouse. We're looking for a sports photographer. Our photographer is retiring, and we saw your pictures in the Wellsville Daily Reporter. We're interested in, seeing if you'd want to come in and show us your portfolio and get the job. And I said, absolutely.
I hope you wouldn't say that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
When opportunities like that come across, no matter what you're doing, unless it's something bigger, do it.
Well, and the thing is too, I looked at, being able to take pictures of sports because I hadn't done it before, and I wanted to do that just for the experience. And really, it led to another position. And now I still do work over at Alfred University. I do a lot of their green screen photos now that they use for their programs and a lot of their online media handouts that they have.
And that's with Chris Boswell.
Chris
right?
Boswell. Yep, yeah. Chris Boswell. Chris was the assistant sports information director for Mark at the time, and now Chris is the sports information director over at Alfred University. And we've worked really well together ever since I started over there. You know, with whatever we've done in the past, we always collaborate really well together.
Yeah. And you and I collaborate really well together too.
Yes, we do.
There's been some wild adventures.
You have taken me on some trips, that's for sure.
I actually have. I don't know if you remember this photo. Hold on here. Do you remember?
I do. Yes.
So when I first started Genesee Valley Media, I had the awesome opportunity where Otis Eastern called me, and they're like, "Hey, we need you to take a picture of our plane with your drone." And I'm like flying in the air? Because that's super illegal. And also a plane is much faster than my drone. They're like, "Oh, what if you got some drone shots of it on the tarmac and we just took another plane up and shot pictures?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can do that." And I'm like, "Is it okay if I bring in another colleague of mine?" And they're like, "Oh, sure." And you were the first person I called because you do the action stuff.
Right. And I had never done anything like that before. So you're calling me and telling me what, this job would be. I'm like, wow, can I do this?
Yeah.
It's like, because it got me thinking like, well, what do I need to do here? And it's like, then trying to figure out what lens I'm going to take up. And because I've never done it before. I'm looking up videos online of people doing military photos of military aircraft, I remember, and this photographer who was they were out looking out the back of one of these military aircraft where they drop things out the back or people jump out the back, and she's like laying on the part that's like, right near the edge, and she's tethered to the thing so she doesn't fly out all the way. And I don't think it's going to be quite like that, but at least I'm getting some ideas here.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience. I'd do it again.
we got up there, and this was at the Wellsville Airport. So it was in the I can't remember if it was two of the Otis planes or they used one of the LC Whitford plane.
Yeah, I don't know.
I can't remember because we got up there and they're like, "Okay, you guys ready?"
Yeah.
And we took we had 10 minutes to take shots of the inside of the plane, which we did. And then and then they're like, "Okay, let's go." And we had no safety briefing at all. You're sitting in the cockpit with the pilot. That's that picture right there.
Yep.
And all of a sudden we're just flying along and you're taking a couple shots side by side to get the wing. And I don't know any airplane talk, but then all of a sudden it's like, "Okay, we need to get one straight up and down." It's like, well, how are we going to do that? And all of a sudden the plane just goes pew and banks.
I remember the hardest thing for me, because of the G's, was being able to keep my camera with my lens up. And I think I had the 70-200 on my camera at the time. I was shooting, I believe, with the Nikon D3S, and I had the 70-200 lens on there. And
Which is a big lens.
It's a big lens, but I was also thinking of using my 300 2.8, which is an even bigger lens and even harder to handhold. So I'm handholding this stuff, and I remember the G's, and I remember thinking to myself, I hope these pictures are in focus because I have no idea what the G's are doing to the focusing on this lens or the camera.
Yep.
And so I was so worried that these pictures are not going to turn out, and they ended up turning out. The focusing was fine, but because I never had that experience before, like I didn't know the effect of the G's and the focusing and all that stuff on your camera, like what it does, and it was okay.
Weren't there a couple times where I literally was standing behind you and helping you hold?
You were. I do remember that. Yeah, I remember you were like right.
I'm right behind him, like trying to, because like Pete said, the G's, when you're going down, it's the lens goes.
And then I remember the alarms on the aircraft going off on planes as we're getting close, and I'm like, "Can we get even closer?" And he's like,
The biggest thing for me is I'm sitting in the back.
Right.
You're focused on what you're doing. The pilot's focused on what you're doing.
And you have,
and I'm watching the pilot watching you, and the plane just going
and
like
you're just
he's
helpless back there.
He's just like this. The pilot's looking at Pete.
And see, I don't really care what's going on as long as I'm getting the shot. That's the thing. I could care less if we were diving and going down down, I was still focused on trying to get the picture. I didn't care about anything else that was going on at the time.
I'm usually that guy.
Yeah.
But I was not that guy. I was overseeing everything, like, we could die.
Right.
And I don't know if there's a parachute because we had no safety briefing. And I've flown many, many, many times, but never like that. I've actually had a more adrenaline-inducing flying experience since that flight, if you can believe it. Yeah, we were flying in with the Sherpa out in the Hudson Valley at the old Rhinebeck Aerodrome.
Okay, yep.
So we went up in a 1929.
I saw your picture video of that.
So canvas plane. There's duct tape in the hull, which it's completely safe. By the way, I was just very scared. And then we're flying over the Hudson in this plane. It's an open air plane, so you literally have the hat on and the goggles.
I would love that.
I got the coolest 360 photo.
I saw it.
There.
Yep, I saw it. I was so jealous.
But when it's so nerve wracking and you're terrified and having an amazing time, so you just have so much adrenaline. Right. And then we got off, and I'm like, "Oh, we made it! This is great." And then we see this like 82-year-old couple like scampering on there, and all my previous fears like, "Oh my God, why was I afraid of this? They do this 20 times a day." But the pictures turned out great, and they ended up on the cover of the magazine.
That was awesome. Very cool experience.
When we got off, we were like,
"Oh yeah," yep.
And I still had to do my drone shots of the tarmac and everything.
Yeah. Oh, that was an experience. That was fun.
And we worked on various other projects throughout the day. But what do you think that I have your website pulled up here? Do you have your goat photo on here?
It's hard for me. I was trying to think of my favorite picture that I've taken. I think one of them. I actually don't even think it's on my website anymore, but it was a photo that I took back when and that's a cool picture. I took that, and I that was just one of those days where I brought my camera to
look at that.
And that was just perfect timing with that
magazine.
And of course, and the thing is, I'm focused on Alfred University, right? So in order for that picture to turn out the way it did, all those other runners had to be in the spot where they were at, and the runner for Alfred University had to be in the spot where he was at, because I've taken so many pictures where they're not lined up properly, and you could be a person who's taking pictures of whoever the lead runner is, but if you're taking pictures for school, you're focusing on their athletes, and so you have to take a picture of wherever they're at, and so he just was in the right spot at the right time.
Who is that? Is her name Ashley?
I believe so. Yes.
I know who that is.
Yes. Yep. She's from
That's
Bolivar.
Heidi Crowler's
originally.
mom or daughter. Mom, not mom. Sorry, Heidi.
Originally from Bolivar, I believe.
Our kids' nanny, our babysitter, is their neighbor.
Oh, okay. Yep. I shot her wedding this past spring.
Wow, that's a wicked shot.
Yeah.
But this, I mean, just these first few photos just show how amazing you are at capturing things like in the moment. So, someone like Jordan is also very good at that.
Right.
But it's more lax where Jordan has control over her subjects. You have zero control.
That's right. And
you're just trying to get
that
shots.
is the most nerve-wracking sometimes. I mean, when you're shooting a wedding, really, the one thing you want to make sure you don't mess up is their first kiss. You want to make sure you're in the right spot for the first kiss, because you don't have a do-over for that, right?
Zero.
And so, that's one instance, when you're shooting a wedding. Obviously, there's a lot of other things, you want to make sure you're getting all the shots that they're hoping you get, but you can have a list of things to check off to know that you're getting those things. Something that's happening live in a moment, with sports, there's multiple moments where you don't have another opportunity to get that picture or to reset up a picture if your exposure is off or your focus was off. And there have been times where I've taken pictures where I remember there was a softball game where I would have had probably my best ever photograph of one of the softball players making a diving catch out in the center field, but my focus was off just enough, and I just ended up deleting the picture because it would have made me very sad.
Yeah.
Because that would have been probably one of my best pictures that I had ever taken.
I've said this before. Again, I'm a broken record on here, but some of the coolest stuff I've ever done I can't show.
Yeah. Yep.
At least I got it though.
Right.
One thing also that you're kind of a minority
Yeah.
right now. There's way more very, very talented. I would say in like your league, there's way more women photographers in you know kind of what tier that you're in
Right.
than there are male photographers in this area.
Yes.
So how kind of is it to if you want to be artistic and do some really cool shots, you need models, right? And it's sometimes hard, I think, for a male photographer to get models because they're like, what is? I don't want to go to a photo shoot with this guy, even though you're just trying to do some really cool shots.
Absolutely.
Like we had that you did that futuristic style photo shoot with Daphne with like the glasses on.
Glasses.
That was so cool.
And that was cool. And again, that was a concept that I was just trying from something else I had seen where you use a projector instead of using a regular background or a regular backdrop. You use a projector with an image on the background, and then you light it with colored lights and gels. And so I love doing that kind of work. And
Is this on the website? Do you know?
it is not on the website.
Okay.
Actually, I was trying to figure out how to pull up a picture of that. I wasn't able to get it to show up for me. Yeah, no, it's one of my favorite shoots. Actually, you know what? If you go to client.petermangels.com, it's in the gallery on there.
Keep talking, Pete.
So the way it works is you use a projector to project onto the background instead of a regular backdrop. So you could do an image of a city. You could do just an abstract image, and then you can light it with your lights, and then you're able to click pretty much
Peter Mangels?
any client.petermangels.com.
Oh, it's not showing up.
That's weird.
Technology.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, well. Anyway, yeah. So and we had done this futuristic styled shoot, and I had never done anything like it before, and it was really, really cool because it definitely had that futuristic vibe, kind of like a cyberpunk-ish type look to it, and it turned out really well, especially for something that you hadn't done before. I'm sure you may have experienced this in the past where you don't know if something's going to work the way you think it does, and when it actually does work the way you think it does, then it's an awesome feeling.
For sure. With this, I just had Kate Martell on, and that was kind of the whole theme of that filming that short film was. It just kind of happened.
Yep.
Stuff just fell into place. The heavens opened. But you are also a very, very talented portrait photographer. And we just worked on a project for charity in the library.
Yes.
Where, because in the past I've done holiday videos, and for those of you who don't know, Pete actually has his studio right now. He uses the GVM studio space.
Yes,
for
which
his
is
studio.
awesome.
Yeah.
I've never had a space like that to be able to utilize, especially with ceilings high enough where I can put lights up, and being able to have that ability to set something up like that is great.
Yeah, because you really want to dive into more portrait and artistic style photography.
Yes.
Along with what you do, with
Typical
sports.
headshots and family, and yes, along with the sports aren't anything I ever see myself giving up because I love that, and I want to expand more so on what I'm able to offer. And I think having a studio space definitely is beneficial in that regard, because you can have your lighting set up and do different things where you're not able to usually. I used to set up things up in my living room. I remember taking headshots in my living room for people, and it's just kind of an awkward thing, I guess, for me anyway, to have people come to your house and go and do pictures in your living room.
No, it is, and I think I've talked to that with Jordan. I've talked to that with Amber about that, where they, it's best when a creator, no matter what kind of creator they are, it's best when you can have your own separate space.
Right.
Outside of it, because I tried working from home when I first started this company, and it just didn't work out. No. I kept getting distracted. I couldn't have clients over because I was all the way up in like our bedroom offside room where there's office.
Right.
And I'm like, I can't do this. I need a space, and I get way more work done because I can also treat it like I'm going to work.
Right.
Right,
yes.
Where it's not like I wake up and I sit down at home.
And I've heard that before. I've heard that, you need to have a space where you can separate your work life from your personal life, and it makes things so much better, I think, for everyone, because when you're home, you're home, and when you're at work, you're at work, and that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So, like photographers like Amber, she has a studio in Andover, Jordan. She used to have a studio in Scio, but she does mostly everything either in the client's house or outside
Which
now.
is a really cool thing to do, I think, too. And that's something that is really niche also.
Yeah, and Zeravia's in businesses or outside. So the outside is their set. It's their studio. And now you have the space up here that you can utilize, which is amazing. But these photos that we did is because I normally do a holiday video every year, and I was so busy this year nonstop that I just didn't have time to get to it. But I love doing something charitable around the holidays. And I called you and I was like, hey, I have this idea that because you're trying to branch out more, because you kind of took a little a leeway from, because your kids were young, so you're raising your kids up. Now they're getting older. You want to get back and get into
involved more again. Yes.
So I'm like, I have an idea. Let's have holiday portraits for a dirt cheap price. You're not going to make any money.
Yeah.
And it's all going to go to charity. And you're like,
let's do it. Yeah.
So you came over, we had a talk, and we were thinking about doing it in the studio, but we thought that it might be hard for, people to get up the stairs, because we wanted to invite all the families, and you might have, grandma, grandpa, who might not be able to be as mobile as so I was like, let's try the library.
Right.
And you're like, oh, that's a good idea. And we called Nick, and he's like, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, and I couldn't imagine it going any better than the way it did. I think it was awesome. And that's one of those things where, when we went over to look, that day and do those test shots that you teased on Facebook.
Yeah.
The visualization that you get when you're trying to figure something out, and then to actually be able to, have it turn out the way you're kind of hoping that it will turn out again it's awesome, because, just being in the library itself is such
majestic.
a unique place. Yeah. And not only the county, but in the whole, area. Coming from Ellenville, we had a smaller library than what we have here. And so being able to show off how majestic our library is, I think is important, because not every town or village has something that special. And not only, the library itself and the woodwork and the history behind it, it has the auditorium and everything is just, we're lucky to have that here.
Can I tell you, and if you look at my social media pages, you can see for yourself, but I've been kind of obsessed with that building lately for the past month.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's easy to see why. It's easy to see why, for sure.
But people came in and there was, so we kept it at a price that was, it was like $20.
Yeah. And it was suggested. So,
and it was suggested.
And if you weren't able to, that's fine. We were there to be able to give people a chance to get Christmas portraits. I don't know how many people, I had several people tell me that this was the first time they actually had family portraits done. And to be able to have it done in the library to them, was special.
When John Anderson came in, he's like, these are like $1,200 sessions that you're giving away for $20. What are you thinking? We're like, it's all for charity.
Exactly.
But that's the reason. And I remember there was 3 or 4 families that, like you said, they're like, we've never been able to have any family portraits done just because, the cost is so high. And then it went to charity. People got to see the library who might not normally go in.
I did have someone come in that told me they had never been in there before.
Really?
Which was strange, because, I mean, you think of, people, would at least be in there once, but there was a person who was in there who's never been in there before. They live here locally, but they have never been in there before, and they were amazed at what it looked like.
And we had a couple people that came with another group who left and came back with a different group just because they loved it so much. They came back, they paid again, and they went on. Which was really cool. There was some people that there was some grandparents who just wanted pics of their grandkid. Yeah. And so it was just we're like, you're not getting in there, and you're like, oh no, we just want pictures of them. Yep. But this was top notch.
Yeah.
Right here, this photo with the baby.
I love that baby.
This was the cutest baby. I think I have my own kids, so I can be 100% biased.
And I've tried taking newborn pictures in the past. And it's just not my thing, and that's fine, because there are so many other better photographers to do newborn pictures who I don't have the patience of doing newborn photos.
But this baby was so chill.
I could take newborn pictures of that baby all day long because of how easy that baby was.
I could stand behind. So one of the things is I would stand behind Pete and I'd dance behind him to get some of the kids to laugh. And I'd say 90% of the time it worked. But that baby, as soon as she walked in, she was just giving me smiles and it was so cute. But these photos turned out incredible. And all week since we've done this, I've been having people, are you doing this next year? Are you doing this next year? Are you doing this next year? Why didn't we hear about this?
Well, that's how you know, I guess, that people liked what you did because, I mean...
Well, this went viral. This went Allegheny County viral. I call anything like 5 to 10,000 reach Allegheny County viral, and this went Allegheny County viral.
That's awesome.
I think it's actually at like 13,000 reach right now. I'm not lying.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
We can actually see. Hold on. Keep talking, Pete.
Yeah.
So, Pete, question: what's your favorite style of photography and why? I know you do sports photography, but what's your favorite style?
My favorite style of photography. I don't know that I have one style of photography that I like. I think I look, being as a sports photographer, I look into those types of, different sports photographers like Scott Kelby, Peter Reed Miller, fantastic sports photographer, just to get ideas, to see how I compare to what they're doing and try and get ideas for different types of ways to go about trying to capture a picture.
Yeah.
I also like looking at like Annie Leibovitz, her photos that she does. Like she's done in the past for like Vogue or like Rolling Stone, like when she was doing those types of pictures. I like her style of photography and getting ideas for lighting and the way she lights her images or the way she edits her images. But I think it's just looking at everything, everyone's work in, general, from, even the people around you, just to try and get an idea of what everyone's style is and just appreciating the style that everyone has on their own, because everyone has such a different look. But I think, just looking for just inspiration all over the place. Annie Leibovitz, Peter Reed Miller, Scott Kelby, people that I, real brand name, I guess, type photographers, but really anyone in general. Like I'll see a picture, of course, Peter McKinnon.
I was about to say, I was like, where's Peter McKinnon at, man?
Of course, Peter McKinnon, and and that's part of the thing is he's that Instagram based type photographer, and I'm not a big Instagram person. I'm not a big social media person, which I know I'm not in. I need to be.
I yell at you about that
for the
all
work
the
that
time.
I do. I really need to be. But
I'm like, Pete, you need to share those photos on your page. And you're like, I'll get to it.
I'm not, and that's part of my issue has always been, and even when I was an assistant photographer for Kaylin Butane for shooting weddings, and we would have this discussion and this conversation many times, she'd tell me to share my work and share my images, and she understood too, because she was kind of the same way, but she would tell me, it's weird, but you have to self-promote, and you have to be able to let people see what you're able to offer. Otherwise, you're not going to know you exist.
Yeah, I keep going back to the three ladies there, but they're masters at that. Jordan, Amers, Aravaya, they put themselves out every day, multiple times a day. They're sharing their work with what they do,
Right.
And it really works. I mean, because you're right. If people don't see your work, then they're not going to see who you are.
Yes. Yep.
And I've said that I've gotten so many jobs just with my own personal family videos because I share them to my page, and you never know who's going to see it or who's going to get shared to.
Well, and again, I went back to, the way I got the job with Alpha University is, just because I filled in for Paul Janis that week, and, the right people saw my work and were interested. And so, I think part of it was also, as you mentioned earlier, the kids and being around them. I've always been involved with them and what their interests are and what they've been doing.
You dadded hard.
Coaching their baseball teams, all three of the kids, doing Little League this past year. I coached 3 different, baseball teams, as well as being on the Little League board, which I enjoy doing. And then, I took a break this year, but I always, I look forward to that and being able to help them with their theater programs are involved with Heidi Studio or dance, or, I kind of didn't want to get bogged down with some of this other stuff either, because I wanted to be available for them. I know I turned you down for jobs a couple of times because
you turned me down multiple times.
because of stuff the kids are involved in, here plays or
it's funny.
Dance
I call you, I'm like,
and
hey, I'm going to be traveling to this spot and we need a photographer, and it's like a very nice paying job, and you're like,
Yep.
I have a baseball game.
Well,
that I
you told me, you said, how much do they pay you?
yeah.
But no, it's I very, I look forward to, being able to expand, what I'm doing and try and get an experience of being able to offer some more jobs now, or being able to offer my services more now and get some other jobs that I haven't taken in the past.
And I completely agree with you about family. Family always comes first. We've talked about this, the 3 tiers.
I remember
here.
the one that you offered me. It was Owen's 10th birthday, and I'm like, I can't miss his 10th birthday. I got to be there for his 10th birthday.
When? How old is he now?
He's 12. He'll be 13 next year.
I think the biggest one that you turned down was this year.
Yeah.
Back in May, we're at Catskills Cuisine with all the Food Network stars.
Yep.
And that was
that would have been neat because I would have been back, towards my old stomping grounds too, from where I grew up.
Sullivan County.
And I did shoot a wedding down in Sullivan County, though. The very last wedding that I shot with Kaylin Butane, who was the person I did wedding photography with before she moved south to Tennessee. It was I guess poetic in the sense where the last wedding that I shot with her was where I grew up as a kid in the same area, and that was downstate, and so that was kind of fun. I
ended up grabbing Travis and Carol Kane from Brave World Media. They're out in Corning, and they do an amazing job. But I could have had Pete. Could have had Pete Mangels.
Maybe next time.
I think they're going to have it again this year. I don't know if we're going to have any involvement, but I think they're going to.
If they do.
But you are very talented, and I do hope that you get your foot back in the door, and people can start utilizing more. Just so people know, for the most part, any still photography that's coming out, Pete is going to be working for clients that I've already had. Pete's going to be working under Genesee Valley Media as my still photographer, but he also has his own. He's his own person, so he's a contractor. So you can just reach out if you want to do anything with Christmas. If you want to do any Christmas portraits, you can reach out to Pete directly.
Right.
Right on your Pixie set, right?
Right.
You can.
Yeah, right on my website. Actually, it just you can go to my website and there's a contact form on there, and it will get sent right to my email. Senior photos, headshots, if you have in the past, I've had people contact me about taking pictures of their kids on the volleyball team, and they want pictures of their kid for the volleyball team, that kind of thing as well. And I love doing sports. I love doing action, but that doesn't mean I don't enjoy doing portraits or those kinds of regular traditional type shoots too.
Yeah, I think your lighting, your lighting is one of your best qualities.
I enjoy lighting. I do enjoy lighting.
A lot of photographers love using natural light.
Yes,
natural light, and they're not, they kind of any photographers, not just the local ones, but they kind of poo-poo on the studio style lighting, but you embrace it.
I do, and I think part of that, again, is trying to separate myself from the other people in the area, and being able to stand out in a way that's different from what other people are offering. And so, I enjoy the natural lighting. Also, I'll use natural lighting too, but being able to have control of your light is, I think, fun because you get to do some unique portraits and unique looks. And so I enjoy using gels for my lighting. I enjoy.
You don't need gels anymore. They're RGB
That's
now.
right. If you're using studio lights, you still need gels. But if you're using video lights, you can use RGB. I enjoy being able to try and figure out a way to offer something that's unique and different than what other people offer in the area. And I think, when I do the sports, like some of the different programs where I'm taking portraits of just, the kids, in their sports uniform, it's not just the regular, same type of picture. I try and think of a way where I can bring out a little bit more, and so using gels in the background to try and make the picture stand out compared to what other photographers generally do. Composites are becoming a new thing. I've kind of looked into composites using like a green screen and taking pictures and then cutting people out. And I actually had, a couple of years ago, someone asked me, they thought the one picture that I took where I used a gel on the background, they thought that was a composited image because they had a kid who wasn't there. They wanted to get a picture of that person and they were going to do it themselves. And they asked for the template for that. And I said, well, that was all in camera. That was not a template. So they were surprised.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, we are, this area is so stacked with creator talent. Like just in a 20-mile radius.
Oh, absolutely.
We are so stacked with creator talent. There's top tier photographers, there's videographers, there's writers, there's artists, Sydney Gallo is an incredible, like, just hand drawn, painted, whatever it may be, artist. She works at Walker Metalsmiths. She's one of their metalsmiths.
Oh, okay.
doing but she designs a lot of the stuff, and it's unique and different, and her art, it just like jumps out of the page, and that's why we have the Allegheny Artisan Tour, of course. But yeah, I mean, our area is stacked.
It is
with creators.
It is,
and you would never guess it, because we're in the Western New York wilds. You know, this is a wild.
It's a
area.
rural area.
Yeah.
You know, you wouldn't expect that. No.
So it's really exciting, just being a part of that and seeing everything expand, and seeing the different styles that everybody has.
Right. And I mean, I think, part of it is, as I mentioned, being able to stand out from what other people offer, but you can still offer something similarly, but also be different at the same time, where you can have, your own style of going about lighting something. So even if someone else is using, studio lights, maybe the way they light it is a little bit different than how I light it.
Yeah, and I was Jordan and I talked about this. There's also a synergy between all the creators, because if I can't do something, I'll send it to someone else.
Absolutely.
I get asked if I can do any sports stills, I'll send them to you.
Right.
If I get asked, someone really wants like a wedding or baby portraits, I'll send them to either Jordan for the baby, and weddings to Jordan, and all the other ones, and Amber, or Amber for the baby. Sorry, but everybody has their own unique niche,
and I think everyone has kind of gotten to the point where they see that, this is what I enjoy doing, and I'm going to do this, and this photographer is really good at doing this, so we'll let them do that, and so, and I think, it's neat, because we do I've sent people, to different photographers as well, based on, hey, I want to have newborn pictures done. I'm like, I really don't want to do newborns. So this is a really good person where you can do newborn photos with, and they do a great job, and you'll definitely be happy with Amber or Jordan or whoever.
And more often than not, they return the favor.
Yes.
I know that Amber sent me people, Jordan sent me people, because they don't necessarily do the style of marketing video.
Right.
That I do, because that's my niche, is marketing and travel and tourism.
Right.
But Pete, it has been amazing having you on. Is there anything that you'd like to say while we're on here to anybody?
Merry Christmas.
Oh, it is Merry Christmas, and we're getting there. I think this is actually, I'm going to try to like rush turnaround this for today.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because I was going to do another one, but they had to reschedule, so I call again. I'll call like, hey, Pete.
In that case, Pet Pictures with Santa, Saturday, December 9th.
Yep.
And that will be from 10 until 3 p.m. at the Wells Elementary School. Folks can come on out. And the money from that all goes to the SPCA serving Allegheny County.
And they're actually the ones that I'm going to be doing the podcast with next week, so keep an eye out for that. But Pete, thank you very much. You're incredibly talented, and I enjoy working with you.
Thanks for having me.
The endings are always so awkward.
Yeah.